Nearly everything we've been told about what life is, who we are, what success is all completely wrong. We've completely misunderstood our own biology and how we're designed to function. And when you really get it, when you get a different understanding of who you are, that's when things start to work for you, rather than you fighting against your own life. And the reason we're struggling is because we're doing it wrong. We're being taught the wrong things because we're not biologically designed to struggle.
Hey guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey guys, how are you today? I'm excited about my guest, who is a repeat guest. His name is Liam Naden. He's a transformative coach, speaker, and best-selling author who focuses on neuroscience-backed strategies to elevate relationships, creativity, and personal clarity. He's authored over 20 books and developed acclaimed programs on marriage, success, and personal growth, serving high-achieving individuals and entrepreneurs. Liam has a really cool story, and if you want to know more about his backstory, you can go to the previous episode, which will be in the show notes, but I'm having him on again because he has a really incredible new type of program, and he's always expanding and growing, and I'm really looking forward to hear about his work enhancing the lives of marriages, and that is certainly something we could all use in this society with a 60% divorce rate. And I do believe in the power of neuroscience and quantum physics, and we have so much power than we are aware of. So I'm super looking forward to having Liam on. Without any further ado, here he is. Hey guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers and Logger Counseling Services. As I mentioned, we have Liam on today. I gave the whole backstory about his bio.
Hi, Alison. Thank you. Great to see you.
It's great to see you again, too. So can you just tell the audience where you are and kind of like how you got here? And I mean physically where you are, like the country.
Well, I've been a nomad for 15 years of no fixed abode, living in boats mainly, in motorhomes and traveling around. And at the moment, we're on our new catamaran that we've had for a couple of months, and we're in Italy off the coast, just cruising around, enjoying the heat of the summer, and fortunately been able to do lots of swimming off the back of the boat. So that's where I am and what I'm doing.
I love that. You know how many people would want that life? So many people would love that life. So I know that from our previous conversations, you shared the transformative process that took you to the point where you can be location free and be really living an extremely beautiful life. So, and so many different people are looking for, let's just say, financial freedom, location freedom, their soulmate, business success, right? And kind of scrapping around to try to figure out what is the best way. How do I manifest this? How do I make this happen? I would love to hear, and anyone who wants to hear the longer version on the previous podcast, we'll have that in the show notes. But if you could just give us, because you've gone through quite a bit to get to where you are, and I think it's beneficial for people to hear.
Yeah, well, in a nutshell, I was like probably most of the people watching or listening, I was a driven success seeker, for many years, where I wanted to have a great life. And I think that's really commendable to anyone who's watching or listening. You're obviously here because you do want to improve your life, and you might have lots of problems that you're dealing with, but you also have this feeling, I'm sure, deep inside you that, life can be better than what it is. And somehow you're not living to your full potential. You just feel there's a voice inside you that says there's more, that I haven't found it yet. What am I looking for even? And that was me for a long time, was not only struggling with all the outside problems, and I had a lot of outside problems, and stress and anxiety and just things not going the way I wanted them to do, alongside that, I had a lot of success and I became a millionaire. And, in a lot of ways, I was living the dream. I had businesses and freedom and a nice home and all of those things. But I still had that horrible feeling inside that, is this really what life's about? Is it really about just overcoming challenges and problems all the time? And it's all very well to say problems are good, problems make you better, problems make you stronger, and life is all about overcoming problems. That sounds good, but it doesn't make you feel very good, and you're dealing with it. Surely there's a different way. And it took me having to lose everything I had, going from this millionaire status and having all this stuff, if you like. I had to go from there to literally losing it all and becoming homeless before I finally took a different approach. And when I took a different approach to this trying to figure out and find out and what to do and how to be better and set my goals and, rewire my thoughts or beliefs and work on all of these practices and be motivated and a really hard worker, until I let all of that go, and I'll explain what that means, but until I really took a different approach to all of that, or when I took a different approach, everything changed in my life. And I actually did reach a place where it wasn't so much that I was chasing after success anymore, because I wasn't, but just success was coming after me. And things started falling into place. And before I knew it, I'm doing what I've been doing for the last few years and what I'm doing now. I'm sailing around on my own yacht with my businesses working perfectly happily from all around the world. And I get to talk to great people like you about things that I enjoy. And also I get the opportunity to learn things that about through my experience and to research them and to say, how did that work? Why did that happen to me? Both the bad stuff, why did the bad stuff happen to me? And why did the good stuff happen to me? And what I've figured out is, unfortunately, nearly everything we've been told about what life is, who we are, what success is all completely wrong. And I'm not talking about the spiritual idea of, we're these infinite beings in a physical body. And I'm not talking about anything woo-woo or theoretical. I'm talking about plain biology. We've completely misunderstood our own biology and how we're designed to function. So I didn't realize that that's what I'd learned when I made the shift. And I'm not saying that I still don't have my moments, obviously, and life goes perfectly. Well, life does go perfectly, but it's a definition of what is perfect, isn't it? But also, I didn't realize what was happening to me. But when I figured this stuff out, I thought, I need to share this with people. And when you really get it, when you get a different understanding of who you are, that's when things start to work for you rather than you fighting against your own life. And, I discovered such interesting things, and I'm sure we'll talk about them. As I say, we've just been taught all the wrong stuff. And the reason we're struggling is because we're doing it wrong. We're being taught the wrong things because we're not biologically designed to struggle.
You know what? I love this. And I just want to ask, because I think it's very poignant, if you could just take us back just for a moment when everything changed for you. Like, was there that defining moment that just was like, could you tell us what that was?
I can remember it very clearly. I was lying on the sofa in the living room of my mother's small apartment. That's where I ended up, from a multi-million or $1 million house to this uncomfortable sofa. And I kept asking myself two questions over and over as I tried to get to sleep. The first question was, why has this happened to me? How come I've lost everything? Because it wasn't on a goals list. I was the master. I'd been to so many goal-setting workshops and peak performance seminars and things about, these are, you need to have your beliefs. You need to be really clear on what you want, and you need to write it all down in a plan, and you need to rewire your thoughts and beliefs so that you attract that, so that you do everything that's necessary to bring that into your reality. So I had all of that. I knew all of that. But I thought, this wasn't on my goals list. How did this happen to me? It wasn't something I consciously created, obviously. In fact, I've spent my life studying self-help, personal development, goal setting, motivation, meditation, spirituality, law of attraction, therapies, you name it. I've studied all of those things to make sure this didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that I knew how to be successful and never put myself in this situation. So the first question, I kept thinking, why has this happened to me? And the second question was, what do I do now? Because there I was in a strange town. I didn't know anybody. All my businesses had gone. I had no money. I had less than no money. what do I do now? And I couldn't think. And I sat down with my notes about all the information all the techniques I'd learned about how to know what you want, how to get clear on what you want and what to do and all of these things and create an action plan and a strategy. None of it helped. I just was so confused about what was going on. Certainly I wrestled with these two questions. Why has this happened to me? And what do I do now? And I kept trying to find the answer. And I eventually found the answers to both those questions, and that changed everything. And the funny thing was, the answer to both questions was exactly the same. And do you want to know what the answer is? You're called Alison Answers, so I better tell you.
Yes, tell us the answer.
The answer to the question, why has this happened to me, and what do I do now, was, I don't know. I have no idea why this has happened to me. I give up trying to find the answer. And what I didn't realize is when I did that, I did something biologically different. I shifted the way I was using my brain. Now, it took me a long time to understand what had happened, but when everything started to fall into place, because everything shifted from that moment on, a few weeks later, or maybe 2 or 3 months later, I had my own business again. Someone just walked into my life out of the blue that I hadn't seen in 25 years and said, here's a business opportunity for you that would really suit you, because he knew my background.
Can
I
I
didn't have
stop
any money.
you for a minute? I just want to ask you a question, because I think this may be similar. Is it the state of surrender that you're describing? Just like, I don't know. And I'm just like, I surrender this and the outcomes, because I know that when I do that, I have incredible outcomes. Even though, like, let's say I'm knowing what I want, but then I surrender it all. Is that something similar to what you're describing?
It's similar, but it's more than that, because
Okay.
the problem is most people say they surrender and they let go, but they don't.
Yeah.
There's still a part of you that's holding on. And what you say is, what your subconscious or your brain is saying is, yes, let go, but keep your eyes open to make sure it's working, and keep the guard up. Make sure that nothing wrong happens. So it's a conditional surrender, isn't it? It's like hope. That's what most people do. They don't just say, look, I completely give up. In fact, not only do I give up on trying to get what I want, I give up on thinking about what I want.
Yeah.
I give up
yeah.
even expecting anything. And, a lot of spiritual traditions that talk about giving up expectation. But getting to that place of true surrender, we all talk about it, but how do you get there? How do you get to true surrender? How do you get to the place where you totally trust in something else? And very, very few people ever get there. And the reason is they don't understand how to biologically do it, or what goes on biologically in your brain when you do that. But if you don't quite do it and you still hang on, it doesn't work. So yes, it is. Does that answer your question?
It does. And you know what? I'm going to throw something out, because you know how we hear over and over again, like everywhere, that people say, oh, if you lost everything today, could you build it back? And people will say, yes, I am wealth. And they'll talk about, well, I have all this information inside of me. And I know I'm not challenging you, because I love your work. I would love to hear you speak to that, because people will say, I've thought about that. I'm like, oh gosh, I would never want to lose everything, but I don't hold on that tight to things anyhow. But I'm just curious when people say, is it we have the bio, and I believe that we have to know our operating system, our biological makeup, in order to, no one is taught this. Like, I can't believe we don't learn this in school. It's ridiculous. But how would you talk about people who say that, who are really have built wealth and then they build it up again? Like, they just do that. Yeah. I'm just curious.
As to how they build their wealth again?
Yeah. You know how you hear that, on people will say that. We'll hear that everywhere. People who are really super wealthy, and let's say they lost all their wealth, and then they're able to build it up again.
Yep.
Some,
well, what I can say is, and I've interviewed and talked to wealthy people.
Yeah.
And the question I always ask them is, how did you create such success in your life?
Yeah.
How did you get, make so much money and have all this stuff in your life? And when you dig really deep and get beyond the book they've read lately, or what they think they're supposed to say, what they all say, the honest answer is, I don't really know how I did it. I just sort of did the next thing. And it just sort of all showed up. And then somebody came into my life and I took an opportunity. And, I'm talking about really successful people, not the ones who go to the seminars or lead the seminars and say, well, I had my goals list and plans and worked it all out. But most successful people have never been to a seminar. They've never read a self-help book. They've done it naturally. And this is the point. It's all about doing it naturally. It's not about trying to make it happen. And that comes to how the brain works. And that's why what we're really talking about here is natural instinct. Because one of the things I've discovered is there's a law of nature called the law of thriving. I call it the law of thriving. And every single natural, whether it's an organism, a creature, or a species, or even an ecosystem, every living thing has one primary purpose, and that is to attempt or to maintain the state where they are the best that they can be, because that's what gives them the greatest chance for survival. It's the most efficient way nature has found for life to survive is for everything to maintain being the best it can be. And if you look in nature is not built on struggle. I know we've looked at all the wildlife documentaries of the lion chasing the wildebeest. This is all sort of skewed for a purpose. But if you really look at nature, and I spend all my time in nature, so I'm lucky to be able to really experience this. But if you see a bird or a plant or an insect, they're not struggling. If they need food, they just find food. There is no struggle, because struggle is not biologically efficient. Nature has spent hundreds of millions of years figuring out the best way to survive. The way to use the least amount of energy is to make sure everything is designed to be its best, its most efficient. So, and this is as fundamental as any other law of nature, like the law of gravity. But here's the thing. Imagine standing on top of, I might have mentioned this last time, but imagine standing on top of a 10-story building and saying to yourself, I'm going to jump off and fly into the air. And you try every technique you can think of. You meditate, you pray, you've worked it out, you've got very clear, you've got your vision boards. This is what you want to be able to do. And you've rewired your beliefs and you're absolutely convinced that you're going to do it. And you jump off. Now what happens? You go straight down. So it's something else. There's an intelligence that takes over, which is way beyond what you think you want and what you want to do in your life. And it's that same thing I'm talking about. How do things happen? I look into how I got to where I am. It wasn't through any, things just showed up and this is the way it happened. And what I realized, we have this instinctual part of us, which is based on this thriving, because we're the only species out of all the species on the planet that doesn't thrive. We're not being our best, most of us. We've got all this dysfunction, all of these problems. And so are we different? Are we different to the rest of nature? Well, if the rest of nature will fall off a building as well, and we'll fall off a building if we jump off it. Biologically, we have the same purpose, which is to be our best. We are designed biologically to be our best, which not only means physically with whatever we've got to deal with, but mentally and emotionally. Because when we're thriving, when we're our best, when we're at our peak, that gives us the greatest chance to survive. We do the right things. We're a lot healthier and stronger. We resist infections. If we get injured, we heal faster on a physical level. And mentally and emotionally, we're far more capable of dealing with our life in a much better way. And something really interesting about this, I thought, so why are humans really different? And here's some proof that we're not. Humans have been around for about 300,000 years, the records of Homo sapiens as a species. For 97% of the time, we were healthier than we are now. We didn't have any of the diseases that we have now. There was no such thing as cancer, diabetes, heart problems. All of the records show this. We have this picture of cavemen, living this brutal life that's short and dangerous and, really horrible. The truth is, and this is why I'm saying nearly everything we've been taught's wrong, the truth is humans weren't like that at all. We were part of this thriving world. If we needed food, we ate it. And so there was no such problem. There were none of these health problems. We were actually 5 inches taller than we are now. All of our bone structure, there was no osteoporosis or problems with bones. Our teeth were perfect. Our jaws were perfect. Our jaws were bigger. Our brains were even bigger than they are today. Our brains have actually shrunk. And the other thing that was missing, if you like, was there's no evidence of any conflict. There was no wars. There were no famines. There might have been the odd skirmish, but all of the remains and the evidence showed there was no conflict between people. So we were a lot happier. But 12,000 years ago, between 10 and 12,000 years ago, something dramatic changed in the way we operate as humans. And there was like, we were going along like this health-wise, and we went suddenly like this. Not gradually, but suddenly. Our lifespan dropped by 25 years. All of these diseases started to show up. Wars started to show up, conflict, and all of these things. And we started to eat foods that weren't suited to us. We started to work a lot harder and had a lot more miserable lives. That all happened about 10 to 12,000 years ago. So I thought, I need to find out, and I did find out, what's the difference? What were we doing differently? Because we suddenly started doing something that didn't suit us, and we're doing the same things today. For the last 10,000 years, which is recorded history, it's been about war and conflict and, disease and bad health. And today we've got this whole system of trying to keep ourselves alive, but we're not living, we're surviving. We've got drugs and, all those sorts of things, great, and therapies and all those sorts of things, but they're not really helping us helping us to thrive. They're just keeping us around for longer and giving us the odd, bit of pleasure to make us think we're on the right track. That's not how we've lived for 97% of our history. So when we understand that, and all that happened was we used our brain in a different way. That was the only shift that happened. It created a whole lot of other shifts. That's what got us eating wrong food and living hard lives and having disease and creating structures and societies that made conflict and, bad things happen. But it all came down to a single shift in the way we used our brain. So what I'm doing, what I realized was doing...
What made us, 12,000 or 10 to 12,000 years ago, what made us shift? I'm thinking into a fear mind, but you'll tell us. Like, what made us shift? Do we know? Do you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I do.
Yeah, of course. I don't. Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened was we developed agriculture. Everybody will say, well, we made all these advances in society. We went from nomadic hunters, where we just went around in groups of 20 or 30 people, and we just found food, and we primarily animal food. We didn't really eat plants because plants are poisonous to us, as we've discovered. So we went from that to a grain-based agricultural society. And instead of just roaming around finding food where we needed it, we stayed in one place and we started to organize things. So because if you have agriculture, you have to have an organization. You can't just say, well, pick it when I find it. You had to plant food and you had to wait around and look after it for a year until it was ready to eat. So for that, you needed an organizational structure. So for the first time in history, we stayed in one place. And when we stayed in one place, we had to create a hierarchy. We had created a hierarchy of some people had to tell other people what to do. You have to go out in the field and I'll be the boss and coordinate the activity. So we created civilization as we know it now, which was being in a fixed place. But here's the thing, when we started to do agriculture, our health declined massively. As I say, instantly. Our lifespan went down and all the skeletal records show our teeth, our jaws shrank and became crowded. Our teeth became crowded, so it led to all these problems with our mouth, our digestion system, everything just went down really badly. So the question we have to ask, and this is what you're asking, why would we do that? Why would we go from this thriving state where we just, if we needed food, we'd find it? We only worked 2 or 3 hours a day to find food. Why would we go from that to working 12 hours a day, toiling in a field, growing food that wasn't right for us, that made us sick? And why would we go from...
hunt? Isn't it hard to hunt though? Are you saying, did they hunt during that prior to this? Was it just eating?
Yeah.
Just
we were hunters.
Carnivore? Yeah.
Yeah, we were hunters. We hunted animals.
Right.
It wasn't hard. It wasn't difficult. And it was very plentiful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why would we go from that life of just hunting and just enjoying life with no stress, no problems, no war, no disease, and being healthy, to a struggling life, living in a town and having people tell us what to do and having all this conflict? You've got more than I have and I'm going to take it off you and I'm going to fight you for it. Why would we do that? Doesn't make any sense until you realized the brain shift that we made. That's the reason. And you want to know what the brain shift was?
Yes. I'm writing things down. Yes, I'm listening.
You actually hinted at it when you said we went to a fear state.
Fear.
But,
Yeah, I mean, I think we shifted to a fear brain, part of our.
but why did we do that? This is the real question, and this is the thing that everyone's missed. I think that I haven't seen people talk about. Why would we suddenly be consumed by fear? Whereas before, I've got this 4-part brain model, which explains that there are 2 brain states. One is your fear-based survival state, and the other is your thriving state. And biologically, naturally, the human brain is designed to live from the thriving state. This is the state where everything's going well in your life. If there's a problem, you know how to solve it really quickly and easily. If you know how to avoid problems in your life, you get the right ideas, you see the right opportunities, and you do things not in an effortless way, you put in effort, but a struggle-free way. Everything flows. And all of us have had those moments where things have gone really well, and it's not been an effort or a struggle. It's just, athletes talk about this peak performance state where they're being in the flow or in the zone. That's actually a hint at what we were biologically designed to be all of the time.
Trust. Faith.
It's not really trust. It's living from instinct. You don't need to trust.
But if you are in a thriving state, you just are free or trusting of not being concerned about, like you can sit, like you don't have to worry about anything. So you're just like,
and you know why you don't have to worry when you're in a thriving state? There's a very fundamental reason why you don't have to worry, or why you don't worry in a thriving state, and it comes to the way we used our brain differently. Because we invented something that we had never had before, and this is what caused all the problems. This is what caused our brain to move.
I'm like, what is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is deep stuff. This is really profound stuff. What we invented that we'd never had before, that caused us to have fear when we shouldn't have had fear. And because remember, your fear-based instinct in your brain is designed to deal with a problem that's right in front of you. In other words, if a lion came out from behind a rock, your fear-based brain is designed to handle that problem there and then immediately through instinct. So, the fight, flight, freeze. Perfectly designed to do that. But we created a whole set of other problems that the brain could never deal with, cannot deal with to this day. And that's what overloads us, and that's what stops our thriving brain from operating. And that invention was language, words. Because we went from, instead of experiencing life, before that we had no language, we had no words, we experienced life instinctively. Now this is such a major point to really understand. It's really profound. It sounds a bit light, but it's very, very profound, because if you think of it like this, if you look at something, when you look at it, what you're really doing is you're labeling it. So you're having this story in your head. You are Alison, I am Liam. Those are some words behind you on the wall. You have a cushion behind you. You're making sense of your world through language.
Yes.
Whereas before that, when we didn't have language, we didn't see the separation we didn't see ourselves as being separate. We experienced life directly. We experienced who we are directly without labeling things, without telling stories. And when you tell a story about something, you're not experiencing it. This is why mindfulness and being present, that's what they're on about. It's beyond thought. And if you think about things like love, when you feel love, what is love? Well, everybody in history has tried to come up with a definition of what love is, and no one has come close to it. None of us can describe in words what love is, but we all know what it is. We just know it when we know it.
Yeah.
That's beyond words. That's what our brain is designed to give us, is an experience directly with intelligence, with what's going on. But when we started to label things, we created a separation. And we started to tell stories about things. We'd say, well, there's a lion coming towards me. What do I do now? And we started to create this separation. So the problem is, and this is the thing, and this is why I've called my book The Thrive Switch, because all you need to do is switch it in your brain, and it's really simple how to do it. The problem is the story. The only problem you have in your life is the stories you're telling yourself. And when you think about it, we've got more than we can possibly, and we say we should be grateful for everything. We're not grateful. Why not? Because we're telling these stories that say to us, you should feel grateful, but you can't feel grateful because something bad might happen.
Yes.
And we created in society things like greed, suddenly, and that's why we planted crops. Instead of saying, well, I know that food is going to be around when I need it, and the right food, and it's nutritious and good for me. We had to plant the food that was bad for us because we thought, well, better to eat bad food and work 12 hours a day to try and to grow it, to make sure it's there, to satisfy my brain's problem that I don't have enough food. But that problem never ends either. That's what created greed, because people would think, well, I've got enough now, but one day somebody might take it all away from me. So I need to build a bigger castle around me, and I need to fight other people to get more, and I need to keep getting more and more and more, and I can't just relax because I have all these problems endlessly. And it's all because we've separated ourselves from nature to create this imaginary world based on stories that aren't real. And it's confused our brain, it's overloaded our brain. And our poor old thriving brain, the one that's saying, look, don't worry about any of this stuff, you haven't got any problems. I'm looking around, there's no lion here. You don't need to think about the future. It's instinctively, you are designed biologically to find the right things for you at the right time. So that poor old thriving brain hasn't got a chance of bringing you the right stuff.
Hey, guys, how are you? Isn't that amazing? This story that we're hearing on this show is great. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book, and then I realized, how is that right, to keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage, and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it, because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book, and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it. I got to tell you, I love the pathway you just took me on, because I experienced so many different things as you went through this process of how you explained this to me. And one of the things that hit me, and I love showing myself that I'm wrong, in my mind as it's going along. So then when you were saying that the one thing that caused us, began the problem is the language, right? So I thought, but I didn't marry the idea. What came into my mind was, oh, well, aren't we all? And I see that it's not true what I did think. So I'm thinking, oh, but with language, we got to connect. But then I do agree so much. I just listen to the whole process. And then what you're really describing is an ultra connection, an understanding of complete wholeness and oneness. But and the labeling makes a lot of sense to me. And what's interesting to me? This is just a side note, because I never think these podcasts are like coincidental. I just don't. So in college, I had this amazing professor that I was doing research with, and I had to conduct research on communication. And the thing that I needed to do back then is I needed to go around and listen to conversations of strangers and basically record them or hear in and determine if people were most of language's stories, which I just think is interesting. And it was just in my micro study, right? Because that was his hypothesis, that it's just these stories. But I love how you just described all of this. I'm now, and I see what you're saying, and I'm a total rebel for like so many things. So I'm like the way we're taught, the things we're taught. But this is one thing that just, it's my issue. So let me just tell you what it is, because you're going to help me with it. I love animals. I do eat animals. I'm never happy when I eat an animal. I'm going to be real with you, because I look at a cow's face and there's nothing more adorable to me than that freaking face. I want to kiss it. So eating a burger, I love burgers and I eat them. So I'm not criticizing it. And I have believed forever that greens and vegetables, and maybe not green, but those things are so good, you know, and so good for me. And I hear you. So I just don't know how to negotiate the idea of killing and which
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand you totally. And you know why? Because I've been through exactly that same process.
Oh, yeah.
I was a vegetarian vegan for nearly 30 years.
Oh my God, really?
And every single belief, I've been to seminars with the great gurus of health who said, you know, you've got to have animals are bad for you, and, you know, they're fat and all that sort of stuff. And also the whole spiritual side, you know, I could never, I remember saying to my partner once, if you ever wanted to eat meat, we would have to separate. I couldn't live with anyone who eats meat, because there's a spiritual bond with the land between us and animals.
Yeah.
And I could never do that.
Yes.
Just over a year ago, I decided I got sick of my health problems. And, you know, I'm not the youngest person anymore, but, and we would take, the two of us, we were on this, we'd got rid of gluten, we got rid of sugar, we got rid of alcohol, caffeine, you name it. And we had a stack of supplements, like this huge bag. I think we had 20 supplements a day.
Yeah.
And my health was just going like this.
Wow.
And I had things like, I got pancreatitis where my pancreas stopped performing. I was rushed into surgery in El Salvador to have my gallbladder taken out.
Wow.
And I thought, I just don't feel good. And the other thing that happened, I started to develop all these aches and pains, really bad chest pains.
Wow.
And my heart started to go really irregular in its beat. And I went to so many cardiologists, and they said, well, it's just an age thing. And, you know, we can give you some drugs and it'll calm it down, but don't worry about it. My health, and I just thought, you know, there's something not right here. And finally I had a session with a nutritional doctor who said, what you're missing is this one extra supplement. And I thought, that's enough. This can't be right. It's not a question of just one more supplement. Everything I knew about nature and being natural and thriving, I thought, we're not designed to carry around a bag of supplements. What am I doing wrong? And what I did was I explored the fact, and I discovered for 97% of our history, we ate animals. It's just how we're biologically designed. And plants are poisonous to us. They have things like oxalates and anti-nutrients, because the thing about plants is they don't have a defense mechanism of being able to run away or fight back. But nothing wants to be eaten, including plants. So plants have developed all these anti-nutrients. And throughout history, we're told we were hunter-gatherers. I know we're getting off topic. No. We weren't. We were hunters. Very, very occasionally we would eat, if we had to, some plants or berries or nuts. But that was a fallback thing. And if you look at any society, any tribal society, there's never been an example of a vegetarian tribal society. There are plenty of them who are predominantly animal products, and then occasionally, if they really modify it and treat it, you know, to get rid of as many poisons as they can, they will eat some of these other foods. So I thought, well, I'm going to give this a try. And it was, you know, I know we're not talking about health, but it's an example. It's the most difficult thing I ever did, was to give up all of these things that I enjoyed and just eat. And now I just eat bacon, eggs, and steak and butter. That's it, and drink water. And I've never felt healthier, because you know what happened? A week after
bacon, eggs, and steak.
Yeah.
They're all so good. Okay, I got it.
That's it. But a week after I made this shift to the diet, and it was the worst thing I've ever done in my life, I felt absolutely terrible for a month. And the reason I felt terrible is because my body was releasing all these toxins and getting rid of all these addictions. Because sugar, carbs, plants, vegetables, whatever like, they create sugar in your body. They're carbs. And in your digestive system, it creates a digestive system that's not right for you. So when you actually change to a fat-based diet, which is then all of those microbes and enzymes are saying they're dying, and you're switching them for a different set, a much more natural set of microbes, and they're all saying, I don't want to die, so keep eating, craving plants or craving, something. And it was the most difficult thing I did. But within a week, you know what happened? My heart went totally normal. My heartbeat.
Wow.
I've got I can point to more than a dozen health conditions that have just gone away.
Wow.
I'm not on any drugs or I'm not doing anything. They just went away. All of these things that I've had for years, not some of them chronic. I mean, nothing I want to get too personal about, but, they just all went away. And that's another clue that I thought, this is the natural way of living. And you change your relationship with food, you change your relationship with yourself, you change your relationship with the environment. When you start realizing there's something natural out there that knows how to make you work. It knows how to do it physically, and it knows how to do it mentally and emotionally. You've got everything you need. You don't need to learn any new technique or think there's something lacking in your life. And you laugh at, bacon, eggs, and steak. Name another species that has a varied, balanced, complete diet. There isn't one. They eat one food. A koala eats eucalyptus. A lion eats a wildebeest or whatever. You have a dog. If you have a dog, what does it eat? It doesn't have, fruit salad for breakfast, and it has one food and is perfectly happy with one food. And your body changes so you don't have these cravings, and I don't miss anything. I can go to a cake shop and it doesn't look appealing. And it's nothing to do with my thoughts and beliefs. It's just my biology is saying that's not what's suited to you. So when you really understand that and really understand that we instinctually are designed we've got all the answers within us physically to solve all our health problems. My partner, she had all this arthritis and they've all gone, not through drugs or having to practice anything. It's really, really strange. And that's what I realized when I started to investigate all the other problems we have in our life. We're designed naturally to solve those as well.
Can you tell us how to switch into the thriving brain?
It's really simple. And this is in my book, and I give all the background, but it's so simple, it's frightening. Traditionally, what people say is you've got to change your thoughts. So you go and you say, I'm having these negative thoughts and I'm saying all these bad things about myself. So you say, well, I'm going to switch them to positive thoughts. And I'm going to think positive, and I'm going to think of everything I'm grateful for and try and get out of this negative state. But actually, it's the thought, what you're thinking is not the problem. It's the fact that you are thinking. Because you're creating a story that's separating. It doesn't matter what the story is. It's separating you from your instincts, from your thriving brain, from your ability to interact directly and instinctively with nature and allow the intelligence that works through you, that works through every intelligent thing. You're denying that from actually doing its natural job. The rest of nature doesn't think because it doesn't have to. It just instinctively knows. And we didn't think, not because we didn't have to. No, that's why we didn't think. But we didn't have to think. Everything was perfect. We were doing perfectly fine. That's how the brain was designed. So this is the big trap. We all think we've got to change what I think, change the dialogue. What you have to do is just get rid of the dialogue. And I have a very simple phrase for it. It's in the book, which is drop it. Just drop it. When you are feeling anxious, worried, or thinking anything stressful, just say, there's a story playing in my mind. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't need to figure out what the story is and go, write it all down. What story am I telling yourself? Just say, there's a story. It's the story that's making me feel anxious. It's not actually what's going on. It's the story. So I just drop the story. And that immediately brings you back to the present moment. It immediately brings you in connection with your thriving brain, which is your connection to reality, to what is, and to intelligence. And then you don't even need to, and then the other thing about what happens is you don't need to think about what to do next. You do it instinctively, and you do the right thing. If you think about, you mentioned about marriages and relationships, what happens when a couple is having an argument? Now, both of them are having an argument, and I'm sure we can all relate to this one. Now, what you're not really having an argument with the person. Your brain is telling you a story about you need to get this person to understand what you're saying, and they're not getting you, and they should respect you, and they don't get it, and you need to think of something else to say to them. Mm-hmm. So it's the story that's making you create the argument. But imagine if you're in this situation and you just said you're having an argument with someone and you're aware that it's making you tense. Instead of trying to figure out what to say, you just say, drop it. to yourself. You drop the story. And what happens next is you're going to do instinctively the right thing. And it could be, and someone I know was introducing this idea too. They tried it, and you know what they did? They weren't thinking, they stopped the thinking, in other words. They stopped the story, and they just stopped saying anything, and they looked at their husband and they went, you know that big lump that you've got in your nose that I really thought that I used to make fun of all those years? I actually think it's rather sexy. So it broke the pattern. And you talk about communication. What is communication? It's not two people trying to communicate. It's two people wanting to communicate. It happens on a deeper level than words. You meet somebody and you go, you have a great conversation because you have this chemistry or connection. It's not about you have to figure out the right thing to say or worry about the wrong thing not to say.
Yeah.
So this is what happens when you just say, drop it. You say, there's a story going on in my head. That's what's making me feel anxious. It's not this, because we can be sitting on the beach, sipping a margarita and still feel bad. And we think, why am I not enjoying this? This is what I wanted to do, but go on holiday and here I am all stressed. It's because your brain is telling you a story. It's saying, well, things mightn't be going well back at home, or, you've got to you can't relax. So you don't need to know what all the story is. It's irrelevant. It's just the fact there is a story. That's causing the problem. So you just say, drop it to yourself. I drop the story. And then you just act instinctively. Don't ask yourself, what should I do now? Or what's the next best thing I could do? That's creating another story, because that's coming from a different part of your brain. It's not coming from your instinctual part. We think, well, we have all these instincts, the instinct to get angry or to fight if we're threatened, or the instinct for food or whatever. How about accepting we have if we have instincts to protect us from danger, like being able to fight back, how about accepting we have instincts to make us thrive, to make us the best that we can be, to make sure the right thing happens in our life, that we do the right thing? That's what real trust and surrender is acting instinctually. And when you know that's how your brain works, and it's just the stories that you're making up because you're using language in a way that was never designed, or makes your brain fry, as it were.
Yeah.
You just say, drop the story. It doesn't matter what the story is, or just drop it. And you find yourself
something. I want to ask you something, because you can just clarify this for me. So I'm a marriage counselor. Okay. So everything you're saying, I completely agree with. I think it is the story. And then the one part that I'm struggling with, and you're going to help me with this, is that, so now we can say to someone, and they can, make a decision to drop it, but they can't, because there is something running like an electrical impulse that is just, it's a habit, it's a recorded, there's this thing that's become almost their baseline of repeating anxiety and repeating situations that create that same emotional state that they become addicted to, let's just say. But what I do find is that when I help a person through like step by step in the moment, okay, so what is the real thing? What is the real thing? What is the real reason that identifying the fear is just actually like fear of like trauma or something from their childhood. When they get that moment, then they can drop it, but they're aware of it. But without the awareness, like I always say, and you could listen, it could crush my whole like, thing here. And if you do it, it's great. I'm fine with it, because I always want to learn. But I'm always saying nothing changes until it becomes what it is. And I just also want to say something else that's really somehow linked to this. There has never in my life been more healing than in the present moment, without thought, and with connection to the forest and to trees and to the life around me. So I believe in that. But I do think that people almost develop this whole record of memory in their body that takes over, and it makes it so they, like, it's almost impossible for them to, without some sort of truth inside of them that this is not real, because if they're thinking that a certain thing that their husband is doing that is just on their nerves is going to kill them, and they don't know why they're having so much stress, and they really believe it, so it's like helping them to understand that this is not the reality, because just telling them to drop it, then that doesn't, they need the background to even understand that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there's two sides to that. One is that's why I've written a whole book about it, because this is the simple part.
Right.
It's a little bit like a motor car. If I said, okay, how do you drive? Well, another example is health.
Yeah.
Somebody comes who's really overweight and sick to and they say to you, what should I do to be healthy? So it's really simple. You just stop eating the wrong foods and eat the right foods and do some exercise.
Right.
But people won't do that because they don't understand. But what you need to do is, just like we've been talking a little bit about food, and like I did when I made the shift.
Yeah.
If someone had said to me, you're just eating the wrong food at the right one, I couldn't have done it. I had to research and find out why it worked.
Yeah.
And then it made total sense to do it that way. So, you do need to understand the background. But I just think, can I just challenge you slightly on this thing?
Yeah,
because if people just try this, if they understand how it works and then just try it, you'll be amazed at how much baggage you don't need to carry on with. Because what I'm really saying is when you say to yourself, I understand that and obviously this takes a little bit of practice to do, is I understand that there's a story running that's what's causing the anxiety. It's not what's happening in my situation. It's all about the story. The story is what I think it means, what I think it will mean. But that's still a story. The words are not the experience. The words are just a label that my brain is using to try and describe the experience, but I'm not having the experience directly. And this is why when we go into a forest or when we meet someone, when you have this loving experience, it goes beyond words to this presence, to this feeling. We can't describe it, but we just feel so connected and how everything we feel alive. We feel our true self. We feel who we really are because we are having a direct experience with who we are rather than living through our labels. But here's the thing. So people who say, well, I can't do this, just try it. Because all you need is when you understand it is the story. And all you need to, when you understand that, you are going to drop it. You're just going to say, drop it. You become aware that there's a story running, whatever it is, and just say, drop it. And then something happens that's good. You have an experience of it working. Because we can say all this theoretically, oh no, some people can't do that. Well, they've never done it. Right. They've always just changed their story for another story. Now I've said, well, these are the words, this is a story I'm telling myself about how bad life can be. And a lot of therapy, I'm sure you'd agree with this, is based around getting people to change their story. So when you have...
It's like dismantling it.
Changing
taking it apart so it's like it doesn't exist. It doesn't rule them anymore, Like that kind of...
replacing it with another story. It's still replace. It says instead of thinking that, think this. Instead of thinking those words, this person could harm me, think, well, no, I can't be harmed, or I can, I'm strong, and it's the same same programming we have with food. We're all completely addicted to the wrong foods. And, there's been all this justification and people saying, well, I like this food might be good for me, or this is good in moderation, or some people are more suited to, some people can handle those foods better than others. And I tried eating meat just for a couple of weeks, but it wasn't me. It didn't agree with me.
Right.
All of those things are pointing to addictions. We've trained our brain and our I agree with you, it's all physical as well, but we've trained our physiology and our brain to operate in a dysfunctional way.
Definitely.
And just as we've been training our brain to be addicted to all the wrong things, it's a bit like a smoker saying, well, it's not bad for me. And everyone knows a lady's 90 who smokes 100 packets a day. So, and I'm different. I can handle it. We all have the same biology, both mental and physical. We're all designed and wired exactly the same way. And to say we're not, what we've got to say is whether it's physical or mental, is it the product of an addiction? If we say to ourselves, I can't not think those thoughts, I need to dismantle it. It's a bit like saying, I can't stop eating that food, I need to dismantle it. Yes, so you need to go through a detox phase where you do dismantle it slowly. But it all starts with recognizing that the end result you want to get to is the way it works. You want to eat the right food that is going to make your body thrive, that your body is designed to function with. And when you do that, it's going to get rid of any health problems that you have and get you to function really well. And it's the same with your life in general. When you get rid of the toxins and the addictions and using, your brain the wrong way so that it's not producing the right result, there's going to be a detox phase. It's not going to be, like for me, it was the hardest thing I ever did was the diet change.
Yeah.
Not only just on a physical level, but on a mental, emotional, spiritual. I had all those thoughts, about animals and loving, and God. And well, it's the same way with this process. You've got to realize that it's the same thing. You just have to drop it. It doesn't matter what the story is. The story is not the problem, or what's in the story is not the problem. It's the fact that it's a story. It's using words to create labels, to give you an experience of your reality that is not real, that is not your experience. And the only way you get into a real state, that's why we talk about being present. What is a state of presence? It's not having good thoughts, it's having no thoughts. That's what presence is. That's what our highest state is. That's what meditation and, being in nature and all of these things and mindfulness, they're all trying to teach us to stop thinking. Thoughts are not the answer. You're not going to find it there. Now, you might have to go through a detox phase, as it were, to get to that point. But when you understand, you have to first accept that the labeling is the problem. That's what's causing the problem. It's putting your brain in the wrong brain state. And it's a bit like saying, how can you possibly get your life to work if you're operating from the wrong part of your brain? And we're all trying to sort of patch up our life by using the wrong vehicle.
Yeah.
It's never going to work. And people can say, well, that sounds really difficult. It's only difficult until you actually try it and see that it works. And then you go, wow, this is amazing. Why wouldn't I do more of it?
Yeah. So we have to end our wonderful conversation. So thank you so much for being here. But I want to everything about you is going to be in the show notes, but I'd like you to tell people where they can find you. And I do request everybody that you would follow, like, subscribe, get Liam's books, like really dive into this. Sometimes it's difficult, even for me throughout the thing, until we got to the part with the God, I felt better. But to transform our minds requires us to be able to let go of this stuff that we're holding on to, all these beliefs. And sometimes we want to fight it. So Liam, tell us where everyone can find you and get your info.
Well, if you'd like to sign up to be notified when the book's released, just go to thethriveswitch.com, because that's the title of the book at this stage, The Thrive Switch, which switches you from struggle state to thriving state by drop it and, all the background, how and why that works. Or if you want to connect with me directly, you'll learn about all my other stuff and how and why this works, because I'm not just making this up. I've researched all of this and I've lived it myself as well. And I've shown other people and seen other people live it too. So, but if you want to see all the background, the justification, and learn more about this and about what I do, my own website, liamnaden.com, there's a ton of stuff there. And, and if people want to email me, liamnaden@gmail, love to hear from you, your thoughts, and just connect to me, and let's do it.
Well, thank you so much, Liam. And I honor you and I wish you all the best out there in that beautiful boat.
Thank you too.
All right.
It's been great to connect. Thanks so much for having me back.
Yes. All right. It's a wrap. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe, if you could, to YouTube, Alison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.